Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome along to this afternoon's webinar. We're looking at one of our VAT Proficiency 2025 digital badge webinars from our series. And the badge obviously will be issued within a couple of weeks' time if you obviously do achieve it. I'll tell you more about the badge in just a moment. But today we're looking at tax codes. Now, there's only so much we can tell you about tax codes. We're going to try and cover the basics today. Obviously, maybe point in the right direction here and there a little bit. And the session should last, quite a short session this one, or it feels quite short, should last around about 30 minutes. Now, just before we get stuck into the content for what we're covering, just a little bit of housekeeping, just in case you're new to our webinars. So, first of all, you don't need a microphone for any of our webinars. If you've got one and you do enable it when you join, you will find it's muted automatically, so you can't verbally ask us any questions. But if you do have any comments or questions you want to make along the way, you can submit them via the questions panel. You just need to click the little speech bubble icon, give it a click. You'll then have access to the box in the bottom right-hand corner where you can type your comments and your questions. Remember to click send, otherwise we don't see them. So if you're wondering why you haven't got an answer, maybe just give it another click. There is an opportunity to download a handout. Not a lot of information in the handout today. You will find the detailed information, and we'll be touching on some of this during the session today as well, probably quite a bit. Sometimes it can feel a little bit repetitive when we talk about tax codes because of the nature of what it is. So we will be referring to the online help quite a bit in today's session. We'll get you using that a little bit today as well. If you do have your software handy, get ready. We will be having a bit of a hands-on task during today's session as well. Now, as normal, we record the sessions. A link to the recording will be included on the follow-up email. You'll get that follow-up email around about an hour after we finish. There'll also be links on that email so you can register for other webinars. So if you're trying to achieve the digital badge and you haven't attended as many sessions as you need to, just follow that link. And also there'll be a link to our recordings. So if there's any sessions you've watched previously, maybe you haven't kept the follow-up emails, do check out the recordings page as well. Right, now just a quick update on the VAT Proficiency webinar series that we're running again. Obviously these are the repeat sessions. They were so popular last month that we thought we better run them again. So this is session 1, mastering tax codes. It is UK biased. I'm sure some of you will be from Ireland and you'll be here along today, but we will be concentrating on UK tax codes. Session 2, which Matt will take you through, where he looks at the VAT return, so preparing and reconciling it. So up to step 2 of the VAT return wizard. Session 3, again, Matt will take you through the VAT return, so actually submitting it and completing those sort of post-reconciliation tasks as well. So submitting it online, doing your VAT transfer, and also making your payment or posting a receipt if you're in a position where you can recover an amount of VAT. He'll also be taking you through the top 5 questions. That will be on Friday afternoon. We'll be looking at exploring the VAT verification check, so I'll be taking you through that one next week. I'll be taking you through the running of reports, so looking at the things like the daybook reports, for instance, the VAT reports, the detailed one that's available for you. And then Matt will be taking you through the VAT corrections as well. And then we've got the quiz. Now, there are 2 sessions for the quiz, just to give you a chance to attend one of those. It is the mandatory part of the webinar series. To achieve the digital badge, you need to attend any 5 of the top 7 sessions there, plus one of the quiz sessions. Now, if you have attended some of them previously when we ran them in June, these will all be merged basically, and if you've done the 5 of the 7 plus one of the quiz sessions, then you will qualify for that badge. So plenty of opportunities to earn that badge. More badges going forward as well. So what are we covering in the session today? Now, as I mentioned, it's quite a straightforward topic. Now, tax codes itself can be quite a complex topic. Which tax code should I use for this? What should I use for that? So just to set the expectations a little bit of what we're not really covering today is questions when you submit them, not saying, right, well, what about this situation? Or I trade abroad and I've made a purchase from France and they're not VAT registered. What tax code should I use? So all these queries like this probably HMRC is the best people to speak to. What's the classification or what's the category of that transaction? We are going to struggle to answer anything like that today. We're going to show you the resources that you've got available so you can check online. We'll cover some of the common tax codes as well. But those questions that we're bound to still get. What tax code should I use for this? Please use the resources. So we're going to start with a brief introduction to the tax codes. We'll look at the defaults, the setup. What do you do if you need to amend a tax code? We'll look at which code. I've got that hands-on task, so getting you involved using the online support material that's available for you to help you get at that type of information. Even our support team, if you contact them and say, right, I've got this scenario, what tax code should I use? They're going to probably throw that back at you. Right, what's it categorized as? What boxes of the VAT return do you need that to impact on? That's the kind of information they would need to know to be able to point you in the right direction. So we're going to show you that hands-on task. So, and maybe pick up on a few scenarios as well. So getting you using the online support that's available to try and identify that type of thing. And then just at the end, we'll explain more about the additional support and also pick up on if there's any outstanding questions as well, just to try and point you in the right direction. I think this is the shortest of all of the topics that we do cover as well. So anyway, we do have Abby and Tina on hand to help support you with those questions, and again, probably just point you in the right direction. But do keep your comments and your questions coming. But let's get started. So set up Sage, you will be provided with a default set of tax codes. If you are based in the Republic of Ireland, the default list is absolutely enormous. I think there's about 50 different tax codes. So if you are based in the UK, then you should feel fairly lucky compared to anyone that's based in the Republic of Ireland. There's a lot more if you are based in Ireland. But there are default lists. I've included the default lists. I've included links just in case anyone needs them. They're available from our help center. If you've downloaded that handout, just click your link and it will take you direct to them. Now, some people will have different lists to others as well. So for instance, if you've been using Sage for quite some time, what you might have done is you might have changed VAT schemes. You might have used a tax code for something and then an update for Sage has come along and actually we were going to use a certain tax code number and actually you've already used it for something else. So that's not a problem, it's just understanding what your tax codes are for. Now your tax codes, you'll find them listed within settings, configuration, and then you've got the tax codes option. Now to be able to access this, obviously if it's not there, it just means that you don't have access to that. So it'll be down to your access levels. So if you want to have a quick look at them, I'll quickly show you this. I'll share my screen. So you should see my desktop at that point. So if I go into settings at the top and then configuration, and then we will have a tax codes tab at the top there. Now, again, your list may look a little bit different, obviously different variants of the software. So I'm using professional today. If you're using the likes of essentials, you're going to have less options along the top. You wouldn't have fixed assets. You wouldn't have project costing, for instance. I think on essentials as well, you don't have dispute reasons, but you will have tax codes. And this is where you can see all of the tax codes. So tax codes, even on the Irish version, go from T0 all the way through to T99. So you essentially have got 100 tax codes that are potentially can be in use. Now, some of them will have, or most of the ones in use will have a description. There's a few that historically you've never really used. They've been enabled, but likes of T3, for instance, hasn't got a description because it's never actually been used. T6 is the same. But if you go way back on Sage, you probably think, well, we want to use T0 to T9. But over the years, if I just scroll down, additional tax codes, partly because of Brexit, and partly for other things like CIS schemes and domestic reverse charge being introduced and flat rate schemes. So the tax code you'll use will be dependent to a certain extent on your VAT scheme. So there's quite a few extra ones in there. So if, as and when a tax code was added by a Sage update, if you were using that number, if it was already in use, Sage would just use the next available one. So you might find your default list is different to what you would find within the help center, for instance. Now, if you need to look at a tax code, very easily, you can just highlight it. So let's just pick on T1 as an example. We'll highlight that one, and you would just click Edit. And this is where you can see all of the various tax code settings. Now, very rarely will you actually find the need to add a tax code yourself. Generally, there will be an update issued, or if there is that need, you would be informed of what you need to do. So over the years, hasn't been for a while now, we've seen the rate of VAT change, for instance. Obviously, currently in the UK, we're at 20% for standard rate of VAT. But over the years, that's changed. I think it went down to, was it 12.5% at one point, and then it started creeping back up. So it seemed to be, I think when I started Sage, it was 17.5%. I'm not sure if that shows my age or not, but then obviously it went down a little bit and it's crept back over the years. So if it is needed, you will be informed what you need to do. So no need to worry about that. But this is where you can edit your tax code. So if you did need to edit the rates, if you've got maybe a new tax code that you've been informed you need to sort of switch on, or you're changing VAT schemes for a reason, you might need to enable or disable a certain option, such as do you want to include it in the VAT return. There's various other settings as well. If you want to check yours, there is obviously those default lists that are available from our help center. Right, now some of those I'm going to pick on now. So I'm just going to pop back to the slides, and I want to quickly mention 3 of the most common tax codes that probably get used either by mistake or inadvertently, and that's T0, T2, and T9, all at 0%. So when you use them, none of them actually calculate any VAT. Now, for classification purposes, if you've got a 0 rated transaction, you would use T0. If you've got an exempt transaction, either goods or services, it will be T2. And if it's non-VATable, so transactions where they don't involve VAT and they should be excluded from the VAT return, things like salary payments, the introduction of capital, for instance, then those types of transactions would be classed as being non-VATable, so you would use T9. So I've got some examples on there as well as to common uses for those as well. And probably the one I want to quickly mention is finance charges. So things like bank charges in the UK are classed as being exempt of VAT, so you would use T2. Now, it's quite common with those, and I'm sure there are people on the session today that where you've entered bank charges historically, you've probably used T0, T2, or T9, not realizing that they should be T2. So they are classed as being exempt. So they still get declared on, even on the standard VAT return, they would be declared on the VAT return. So bank charges would be declared in box 7 of a UK VAT return. Whereas if you'd use the T9, it wouldn't be declared at all. So sometimes with tax codes, subtle differences. So it doesn't attract VAT, so it wouldn't affect your overall VAT liability, but would still need to be declared on the VAT return. Now, if you use T0 rather than T2, well, actually, those transactions will affect the VAT return in the same way. It's really just for categorization. So if you needed a list of exempt transactions or 0 rated transactions, you can get at that because you've categorized the transactions properly. Whereas using T9 in error, then it means it's not going to declare that on the VAT return. If you have used the wrong one, then do speak to your accountant or HMRC, and they should be able to advise you what to do. Do you need to do some sort of adjustment to a future VAT return or not? Now, speaking of which tax code should I use? And it's a very common one. So Debbie, you mentioned, will I be covering that T0, T2, T9? I hope that's maybe just giving you a little bit of an insight into that. There's only so much we can cover on that one. So information in our help center as well about each of the tax codes and settings, and also if you do enter a transaction with that specific tax code, which boxes it would affect on your VAT return. And obviously that can differ between different VAT schemes as well. But the big question, and I try to nip it in the bud a little bit at the start, saying, right, when we're not in a position to be able to say, right, you need to use this tax code for this transaction. Our support team would very much be in the same position. So our help center, I'm just going to quickly share my screen again. And if we bring up my browser, and I'm just going to go to sage.co.uk/help. So it takes me to this page. There's Sage 50 accounts, which I'll click into. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to type in which, if I could type, that would help. So which tax code? So there's this article here, and this is one of our most commonly used articles, as you can probably imagine. So which tax code to use? This is the UK one. There is one for Ireland as well, if anyone has joined us from Ireland. So which tax code to use? UK only. So this article, as I say, it's by far one of the most popularly used articles, gives you this sort of troubleshooter option. So by answering a series of questions, it will try and guide you to the right tax code to use. So for instance, in the article, we could say, right, I've made a purchase. It's for goods. Is the purchase from the UK or abroad? I'm going to say UK. Is the purchase for transaction under CIS domestic reverse charge? I'm going to say no to that one. Is VAT charged on the goods? We'll say supplier is not VAT registered. Some of the other options will be grayed out because of some of the answers I've put. But the idea is you work through this. And then at the bottom, once you've completed those, it'll check them and try and direct you to the correct answer. So in this case, purchase of goods from a supplier who's not VAT registered, you would normally, if you're on the standard VAT scheme, you would pop in the invoice and you would use T0. So the gross value, you enter that as your net, T0, it would be picked up on your VAT return in the relevant calculation. So that, as I say, that is one of the best resources for tax codes if you've got that type of query. But if you're still not sure beyond that and you want confirmation, do check in with HMRC, check their help desk, or maybe check their website as well. The idea, the information that you need is not just the transaction, but how does it need to impact on the VAT return itself? How should it do that? Which boxes should it appear in? Right, now for those of you that do have your Sage available, I'm just going to go back to the main help center itself. And I'm going to do a search. Now you might want to do this search afterwards. I'm going to give you the code and I'm going to get you to try this in just a moment. But if I search for F12, and this is the hands-on bit that I wanted to guide you through. So there's this article here, open a web page from within Sage 50 accounts. Now this will guide you through the process that I'm about to show you. And the idea is when you're working in your software, if you've got a query like that, which tax code should I use for this? You can press F12 on your keyboard and it will bring up the relevant, or you can get it to bring up a help article, such as that article we've just looked at. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this code. I'll copy it. I'm going to pop that into the chat box for you as well. So I'll pop that in there now. Just give me a moment. And then you should be able to see that via the chat option in just a moment. So all of that code, the CMD /C, so all of this code here I've copied in And now you'll need to copy that at some point, but just bear with me for a moment. I'm going to show you what I want you to do with it. I'm going to go back to Sage. I'm going to cancel out of all of these windows, and I'm going to go into Tools, into Options, and then the Environment tab. And this is where you can configure F11 and F12. Now, by default, F11, when you press F11 and you're in Sage, it would open the your Windows control panel settings. F12, it launches the Report Designer. Now, I don't think these days anyone uses F11 and F12 for those purposes. So what I would like you to do, if you get a chance, if you've got your software available to you, in the F12 box, I want you to delete everything that's there and then paste in that bit of code that I just shared with you via the chat. And then what I want you to do is just click OK. It'll take you back to your software. And then when you press F12, what you should get, it's opened on my other screen, what it should do is open that article that we just looked at a moment ago, that which tax code to use. And then you've got you into that option. So what that means is if you're working in Sage, you're not sure about a certain transaction, you could then just press F12. And as long as you've entered that bit of code that we mentioned, that we've popped in the chat box, it will open the relevant article for you. So it'll get you to this position so you can answer a few questions and it'll bring up the relevant help for you. So I'd like you to do that if you don't mind. So just to quickly repeat those steps. So once you've copied that code, go in your software, go to Tools, Options, into the Environment tab, and whatever's in the F12 box, delete that. So you've got an empty box, and then paste that code into it, click OK, and then on your keyboard, just press F12 in Sage. Debbie, you just mentioned there, are the settings per user or does it default for all users? Basically, when you configure this code, it goes to a local file. So it updates what we term your Sage ini file, which is like a local file on your PC, holds a series of settings. It updates that and that's where it's held. So if you're the only one that works in Sage from your PC, it's only you that's going to affect. It won't impact on your colleagues if they're working from other PCs. If you've got multiple companies, it will affect all of them when you're working from your PC. So F12 will work in the same way, but doesn't affect anyone else from any of their PCs. Hope that makes sense. Tricia, you mentioned the code. It should be in the chat box. So you should have a chat option on your toolbar down the side. If you can't see that, just open the Help Center as I did earlier. So I went into the Help Center, just open your web browser. You go to sage.co.uk/help. Choose Sage 50 accounts, which will bring up, then it'll bring up this window, and then just search for F12. And the very first article, open a web page from within the Sage 50 accounts. If you click that and then just scroll down, you'll find the one that you're after. So it's this bit here. This is what we're after. The third bullet point where it starts CMD, you need a copy from that one all the way to that end of that number. So we'll highlight it, copy it, and then paste that into that F12 box. Once you've done that, click OK, then from your software, just press F12 on your keyboard. And does it bring up that article? Does it work for you? It should. There shouldn't be anything to stop that. Caroline, just make sure you've copied all of that code, including the CMD at the beginning. You mentioned it's not working for you, but let me know via the questions panel. Just give me a yes, it worked, or yeah, great, something along those lines. If it doesn't, again, let us know. This is normally where our questions panel goes crazy with everyone saying yes or no. But do let us know. Again, if it doesn't work for you, try just emptying the contents of that F12 box. Make sure it's completely empty and then paste that code in. So loads of you coming through, loads of yeses coming through now. Odd one saying you're having problems. If it hasn't worked for you, just try it again afterwards. So try it again after we finish the webinar. Obviously, you could use the similar code by just copying that. You know, if you've got a different web page that you want to use, you can copy the same bit of code at the beginning and then put your own web link in there. And again, when you press F12, then it should open your web page. A few other questions coming through about other settings that are contained within that area, tools, options. Check out our recordings, tools and options. We've covered all of that over the last couple of weeks. We had separate webinars on that one. It goes through all of the settings. It'll explain them inside out. So do check out, it's on the recordings page. Link to the recordings page will be included on the follow-up email. F11 will work in the same way as well if you prefer using that one. Right, okay, let's quickly get back to the slides for a moment. So, if I can find the right button, that is. There we go. Right, so Help Center. Just to quickly mention that we've obviously just looked at that article briefly, but when you do go into the Help Center, there is a panel there for Manage Your VAT. If you get a chance, check that out. It will give you the two options, GB in Northern Ireland or Republic of Ireland. So it's just a case of you choosing your location. Once you've clicked that, it'll guide you through to the necessary, hopefully the necessary information to answer your query and support you with whatever help you need. So that hands-on task, F12 or F11 you can use as well if you're using version 28.2 or above. But again, let us know if that's worked for you. Right, for those of you that have got it working, what I'd like you to do is maybe try these scenarios very quickly. So press your F12, have a go of it. For those where it hasn't worked, just open your browser, go to sage.co.uk/help, choose Sage 50 accounts, and search for which tax code. Find the article, and we'll use that in a minute to hopefully try and work through these scenarios. But try those scenarios, see what you come up with. Does it find the answer that you're after? I think I've given part of it away. So option 2 we tried just a few minutes back when I first demoed that one. That's probably why I've done that. In the back of my mind, I knew it was going to cover it. Something was guiding me through saying, click this, click this. So those of you that are just copying, it's tools, options, and it's on the environment tab. But for those of you that are using it, try these couple of scenarios. So what would be the tax code for bank charges? I know we covered that one earlier, but have a go of it. It should mention bank charges on the first screen because it's such a common one, that one. Option 2, work through it. What tax code would you use for the purchase of service from a supplier who is not VAT registered? And then final option there, sale of goods outside of the UK when you've got proof of exportation. So when you got the first one right for bank charges, it will be T2. I'll quickly share my screen. I'll work through them with you as well. So if I get back to it, I'll just get back to the which tax code article. Let's try that one again. Which tax code? So this is the UK version as well. So the first scenario was bank charges. So actually on here, we've got bank charges or interest. It's actually listed because it's such a popular thing. So it's mentioning there, bank charges, you should treat as VAT exempt. So you would use T2. Second scenario, I'm hoping you got that one. Purchase of a service from a supplier who is not VAT registered. Now I'll just reload this. Actually, we'll go back. So we'll get back to the main page there. So purchase of a service from a supplier who is not VAT registered. So we click onto purchase. It's for services. Is the purchase from the UK? We're going to say UK. It's not anything to do with CIS, domestic reverse charge. Actually, I think I need to just quickly restart that one. Just let me get back to the main article again. I'll re-access it. So it was a purchase. It was services, UK. It's nothing to do with CIS. And again, it should guide you through as it did earlier. So what it should basically guide you through, I think I've just got a refresh problem on mine. It should guide you through to that point where, as we did earlier, it mentioned T0. Hopefully you got that one as well. Right, let me just refresh this one more time. I'll go through that final option with you. I'll just bring that up again. And the final option was sale of goods outside of the UK. So it's a sale, it's goods outside of the UK. Is the transaction covered by the Northern Ireland Protocol? I'll say no to that one. Do you have proof of exportation? I'm going to say yes, that was part of the scenario. And again, it tells us how to complete that transaction. But again, I must stress, if you're in any doubt whatsoever, so maybe you've run through that and you think, still not sure, get in touch with HMRC. You should be able to tell you about the transaction or explain to them, and you need to know, right, how do I need to declare that on my VAT return? That's, if you know that, that's when you can contact our support team. They should be able to point you in the right direction. Right, now this is hopefully a short, sharp webinar, this one, just to really get the ball rolling for the VAT badge. Giving you some information about some of the key tax codes that you're going to be using. We can't cover them all because there's that many to use. And I saw a question earlier about, will I be covering XYZ as far as tax codes are so concerned? You just don't have enough time to cover them all. Some will be very niche to some people. Others will not be applicable at all. Maybe it's a CIS tax code, or maybe to do with flat rates and flat rate schemes and things like that. So do check out the information that's available. Now, if you've got any final questions, if you want to pop them in there, remember the handout's available to download as well if you're after that. Help Center, loads of information in there. Use that Manage Your VAT panel. Copilot, if you are interested in finding out about that, we've got some interesting sessions coming up. And part of Copilot, one of them is to help you improve data accuracy, so anomaly detection. So it'll actually look at your historic data and it'll say, right, well, based on your historic data, you've entered this transaction. It's a bit unusual, you've used this tax code, or maybe the VAT amount looks a bit unusual. So it'll try and help you identify that one. So if you are interested, follow-up email will include the link, follow that, and you'll be able to get yourself registered for one of those Copilot sessions. Right, just bring us to the end of the session. Remember, on the follow-up email, which you will receive in round about an hour's time, there'll be the link to today's recording. There will be a link to our registration page. There will also be a link to our recordings. So someone's just mentioning about the recordings there. Where can I find the recording explaining settings and tools? That should be on there. So on the recordings page, if you go down to the tools area, there should be an option for tools and options. Again, just give it a click. It's hosted in YouTube, so there's no logging in or anything like that. It should just be click to view. Now, as you leave today's session, all we ask is that you take a minute to complete our little survey. It should take you about a minute, give it a score. Let us know what your thoughts are. What would you like to see covered going forward, that type of thing. So if you can take that minute to do that, it'd be greatly appreciated. Right, any final comments or questions? We'll just give you the last call. I'll give you about another 30 seconds, otherwise we'll end the webinar. Right, remember the other sessions that we are running? Matt will be starting to take you through the VAT return, parts 1 and 2. So part 1, we'll be looking at sort of calculating the VAT return and actually agreeing the figures and reconciling. That's tomorrow afternoon. And then part 2 of the VAT return, we'll be looking at the third tab, which is to actually do the submission, do the VAT transfer, but also either make the payment or record you making of the payment, or the receipt if you're in a position where you can recover a refund. So please get yourself signed up. And remember, if you do attend 5 of the 7 plus one of the quiz sessions, then you will qualify for that digital badge. Right, we'll end the webinar at that point. Many thanks for coming along. I hope you have enjoyed it. Maybe some food for thought there. And we hope to see you on the other sessions very soon. Many thanks.